Get up. Hey. Que isso? É meu aniversário, né? É meu aniversário? Bom dia, bom dia. Bom dia. Alô? Alô? Teste. Alô? Teste, 1, 2, 3, teste. Só pro... Prende aqui no cinto.
You like Madonna?
A Madonna tem aquele headset.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? We just go as it is because it's getting late and I have a lot. Okay. And then maybe tomorrow we can, if it doesn't work today, we can arrive early tomorrow and awesome. Okay, so let's get started because first Sunday of the year, people usually are late. Yeah, we have quite a few people say they were coming, but they're probably late. I think we tend to forget how long it takes to get here, right? Okay, so let's start with our initial prayer. And let's close our eyes. Dear Lord, our Father, dear Jesus, our Master, with our hearts full of gratitude, we are here today to learn from your lessons, to praise the Lord's name. We are here today to listen, to reflect, and to take one more tiny step in our path to evolution. Lord, we ask for the strength to keep going. We ask for the opportunities to practice our virtues. We ask that our spiritual guides illuminate our thoughts, give us the intuition of the best action. we might be deserving spiritual guides of our family and of our spiritual center. May today's meeting be enlightened. May the mentors of this house be able to help us understand, learn, reflect, but most of all, apply what we learn in our daily life. Thank you. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so today our lecture is Where There Is Discord, Let Me Sow Union. And this mini lecture was based on the book Sublime Oração de Francisco de Assis by Alírio Cerqueira Filho, in which the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi is used to show us the path to a better us. How can we use Saint Francis of Assisi's prayer to improve ourselves, to change, to better ourselves? So, to start, I have the whole prayer in English. Prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there's discord, union. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. And where there's sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we're born to eternal life. So the book uses this prayer to show us a way to change ourselves, to improve ourselves, to a new us. Um, Last year, I did, this is one of my favorite books. So last year, I did share on Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Another, where there's hatred, let me show love. And where there's injury, pardon. Today, we're doing where there's discord, union. Um, I don't know if you spoke with Eric about this, but every month we have a virtue. Did he tell you? So what we do every month, we have one specific virtue that we try to, and kids. So January's one, I remember what was so love when the virtue was love, when we were talking about forgiveness. So this month of January, first month of 2018, we're talking about fraternity. And this is why we're doing where there's this soul union, because the virtue of the month is fraternity. Okay, so first of all, what is to sow? Because Saint Francis says, where there is discord, let me sow union. So I have no idea. Pardon me? No. You're surrounded, Moa. No, he does. No, he does need to improve. So what is to sow? Where there's In Portuguese, yeah, no, the horse it doesn't. In Portuguese, he says, "Where there is discord, let me bring union." I like better the word they use in English. Let me sow. To sow is to spread seeds, to plant something. Semear. Remember, there's an expression: you reap what you sow. Você colhe o que você planta. So St. Francis of Assisi says, where there's discord, let me sow union. Because can we give people union? Can we make people unite? No, we can't force it. We can't change anybody except for ourselves. But what can we do? We can sow. Now, if we're sowing seeds. Where do the seeds come from? Where do seeds come from? Exactly. Where are the divine laws written? Question 621. In our conscience. So when we are created, God places the divine laws in our conscience as seeds. Who needs to make those seeds grow and give fruits? Us. Now, when St. Francis says, where there's discord, let me sow union, you sow with seeds. But in order to have seeds, you need the fruits. So if we don't grow union in ourselves, we won't have fruits and we won't have seeds to give others. So first, we grow it within ourselves. Then we use the seeds from the fruits we already have, and then we can offer seeds to others. Because seeds don't come from seeds. We have the seeds, but we can't multiply the seeds. We need to grow the fruits that will give us more seeds, and then we sow. Symbolically speaking, of course. Do you agree? So we can't offer something we don't have. How can I tell Moa or Carlos to be fraternal, to love their neighbors as themselves, if I don't do it? That is being a hypocrite. That's being a moralist. Do as I say, not as I do. And that's not the idea, right? How do we teach our children? How do we give an example to all those around us? It's only by doing and not just by saying it. Okay, so um, Saint Francis of Assisi was a reincarnation of John the Apostle, right? Did you guys know that? Yeah? No? So Saint Francis of Assisi was one reincarnation of John the Apostle. He came back 12 centuries later to help guide us again because humanity has a habit of distorting good messages into whatever is convenient for us. So John the Apostle came back as Saint Francis of Assisi to give us a huge example of how we're supposed to do it, how it's done. And his prayer gives us the path to become a true apprentice of Jesus. And this prayer is not about sowing love, pardon, faith, hope, light, joy in other people's hearts. It's about doing it in ourselves. because it's very easy to just, sit down and point fingers, right? Those beautiful messages on Facebook. People only love you while they can use it. After that, they despise you. And a lot of people, yeah, that's right, I agree. We're always looking at what others do. Others betray. Others use. Others this. When are we going to look at ourselves? When in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? You know what is plank? A tauba. Só dust é pó de serra. So we see sawdust in our neighbor's eye, but we don't see a plank in our eye, right? And then he continues. How can you say to your brother, let me take this speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? And that's in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 3 and 4. So this is what we do. We see what others are doing, but we fail to look at ourselves. Why? Why? Why is it easier to look at others and trying to fix others than it is ourselves, in your opinion? And also because I can fix others, I can fix others with words. But when it comes to myself, it needs action. And it needs admitting my pride and all my egotistic feelings. And it's a lot of work. So it's just easy to talk about others than acting upon myself, right? In the Gospel according to Spiritism, Allan Kardec says, one of the follies of humanity consists in seeing wrongdoing and evil in others before seeing it in ourselves. In order to be able to judge ourselves, it is first necessary that we see ourselves intimately reflected, as in a mirror. To be permitted, as it were, to look at oneself from the outside, as if we were someone else, so that we can ask ourselves what we would think if we saw someone doing what we do. But like really doing it deeply, not superficially, not, yeah, I would be okay if someone else did what I just did. It would be okay. But we say that superficially. Because again, looking at ourselves in depth will require action change. And it's a lot of work. And many times, or even most of the time, not willing to do what is needed to change. And then Allan Kardec continues. Beyond all doubt, pride is what induces us to disguise our faults, both moral and physical, even from ourselves. Right? That's what we do. We disguise them from others and from ourselves. The physical ones, believe it or not, are even easier to disguise. There's clothes, makeup, plastic surgery, but the moral faults, we can lie to everybody except to ourselves. Because sooner or later, we will have to admit because the divine laws are written in our conscience. So what we do is we close the door, we shut them up and leave them there. But they keep banging on the door. They keep screaming at us. And that's when we know we're doing something wrong. And that's when we need to disguise our faults. If we need to disguise our fault, it's because we know it's a fault and it should not be there. Correct? And this text is in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 10, item 10. And chapter 10 is Blessed are the Merciful. It's an amazing chapter, and it talks a lot about is it correct to see other people's faults? Is it good sometimes, or is it always bad? So it's a very, very, very important chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism. So now we're going to go back to where there's discord, let me sow union. So up to now, we saw why we want to fix others before we fix ourselves. Because we disguise our faults. Because we see the speck of soda in our neighbor's eye, but we don't see the plank in our eye. So let's see how we can change from the negative to the positive. From analysis that Alirio made in this book, okay? So everything that I'm saying here is mine. So what is the origin of this? The origin of the word is this is a negation when I from the heart. When we distance ourselves from the essential within us, when we move away from God's love, when we don't see ourselves as God's creation, and then we move away from God. What's the cause? It's caused by denial. So this negation. So it's a denial. So we deny that we were created by God. It goes from denying that we were created by God to denying all phenomena caused by the divine law. So I refuse, I deny everything that comes from God or divine law. I say it doesn't make sense. And sometimes it's an atheist saying that. But many times it's a person who's supposed to be religious. Kinds of belief. Like we believe until we have a problem. When we have a problem, God doesn't love me. Why did God do this to me? Why me? So that's proof that we don't have an unshakable faith. So it's not just atheists that deny God or the divine law. A lot of so-called religious people do as well. Actually, most. The person symbolically distances him or herself from God's heart. What's the movement? It's a deep non-acceptance. This is another word for denial. I just didn't want to repeat myself. In which the person distances him or herself from life's essential matters, from life's essential issues. So, for example, when we studied where there is, go back to it. Yeah, that's today. The previous one, I just want to use the right word, injury. When we studied where there is injury, let me so pardon. I don't know if you guys remember, but we were discussing that when I feel offended by someone, it's not the person who is offending me. I feel offended. Because if it's not true, doesn't matter. If it is true, I have to fix. So in reality, What others say to me will only cause injury if I let it. It's a concept that is logical. It's a concept that makes total sense. However, sometimes when we learn a new concept like this one that makes sense in our lives, we still say, meh, we learn, it makes sense, but we still don't accept because I don't want to change. I am so set in my way. I'm so set in the way I used to be or in the way I think I am. I am what I am. I'm not going to change for anybody. So we're so set in that that even when we learn something new that is positive, that makes sense, we still deny it. So this is the movement of discourse. This is the movement of
the same denial. Non-acceptance and discordance, they manifest in their own lives. So I project that on others. If I don't accept, you can't accept. If I don't believe God exists, anybody who does is silly, is non-intelligent, because I don't like the other word. So it's a projection. I project on everybody. If some things are unforgivable for me, they have to be unforgivable for everybody. If certain things are good for me, they have to be good for everybody. Right? So it's the start of the process of attacking people who don't think or act the same way they do or we do. The feelings of hate and offense intensify because anybody who thinks differently from me is automatically wrong. So I don't give anybody, I can say I give people the right to disagree. I can say we agree to disagree, but you're wrong and I'm right. I cannot admit that someone who does or thinks anything different than I do could possibly be right. So we project our denial on others, and we project our unbalance on others. If I can't forgive certain things and you do, that's completely unacceptable. And if it drives me crazy that somebody did it, I am completely out of balance and I project that on you. I'll give a personal example. Something happened in my life that I forgave a person. But for one of my family members, that was absolutely unacceptable. And that person wouldn't talk to me for 2 months because I forgave someone. And in that person's concept, that's unbelievable. That person was mad for 2 months because I forgave someone. So I was at peace, but that person was completely unbalanced and projected all that onto me because in their opinion, I was wrong. I couldn't have forgiven. That was unforgivable. So that's how we project, and we project our unbalance onto others as well. We throw all that aggression, we attack the other person. Because how can you possibly do that? And this is a vicious cycle. It never stops.
Sorry.
It's okay. It never stops. It's a vicious cycle. And how do we break it? How can we break a vicious cycle?
By breaking it,
But how?
by doing the opposite.
Exactly, Marcus. By doing the opposite. By building a virtuous cycle. Not vicious, but virtuous.
But how can I do something that I don't know? Because I always did something. How am I going to do the opposite? I don't know.
By reflection. By reflection. Because here's the thing. We, in theory, are spiritists, right? So we have a certain knowledge of spiritism. We have a knowledge of the divine laws, mainly the major law of love, justice, and charity, right? So we need to use the knowledge we have and apply it. Otherwise, it's just intellectual information.
But there are some people that they don't have the knowledge.
But there are some people who are not spiritists, but there are some people who are not Christians in title, but they are a lot more Christians than the one who say they are. Why? Because they follow the law of love, justice, and charity. They think before they act. They try to think if they are treating other people the way they would like to be treated. Those are extremely simple concepts. When we think simple and complex, they're not complex. They're very simple. But that doesn't mean they are easy to do. It requires a lot of work. And breaking a vicious cycle and turning it into a virtuous cycle, it's not something that will happen overnight. It's not something that you decide today and there you're done. It's something that will require daily work 1,000 times a day from today to the day you die and on to the next life and so on.
But people don't want to do this because it gets a lot of work. And people don't like work.
But that's the thing. Can you change anybody else?
No, only me.
Exactly. And that's the beauty. In order to have a collective that is Christian or that fulfills the divine laws, we need to have the individuals who do it. And even though we cannot change anybody, we can always give the example. Because here's the thing. When we are at peace with ourselves, because we know we are doing the best we can, That's what matters, because it's between us and God. So what other people do affect us, yes, most definitely. But that's not what really matters. What really matters is what we do, because we are only responsible for our own evolution. I can't evolve for Mars. I can't take his hand and drag him down the road. It's got to be his decision. It's got to be his attitude. So when we worry about how other people are acting, we are not being that one individual who's going to give the example and contribute to the collective. It is a lot of work, a lot of work. But someone has to start. Correct? We can't have a better planet, we can't have a better collective if we don't have better individuals. And why am I going to wait for someone else to start? Again, on this book, The Sublime Prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, every chapter, which is each verse of the prayer, and Marcos has read it, they give you here exercises, and they give you ways to practice and to change from what we've been for so many incarnations into what we should be. And again, it's not overnight. You don't break the vicious cycle just because you decided. Decision is the first step, no question about it. You can't do anything if you don't decide you're going to do it. So decision is definitely the first step. However, it's necessary to act. Because I can't decide to start my diet on Monday every Sunday. That doesn't mean I start my diet, right? Decision is the first step. But decision without action is nothing, right? And this is like really a guide. It has exercises at the end of each chapter. It has exercises that help us get there. And again, it's not the first or second or third or 100th time that we try. It's a continuous effort. Patient, disciplined efforts constantly in order to build the virtuous cycle of everything, virtuous cycle of love, of union, of forgiveness. But we can't do it without the knowledge. So the knowledge comes first. So we need to know, then we need to feel. Because it might make sense, but if I don't feel in my heart that that's going to help me, that that's going to make me a better person, and that's going to make me at peace, then I can't move on to the next level, which is living that knowledge. So I know, I feel, and then I live that knowledge. Most of the time, we stop in the knowing, because that's not a lot of work, right? We study a little, we know, woohoo, but we don't feel in our hearts, or at least not enough to act upon it, not enough to live it. And that's when suffering comes, that's when pain comes, and keeps pushing us to the path of, you know what? If you work on this, you don't have to suffer. There's no need for pain. But unfortunately, we are not the greatest learners unless we vote. So how do we build the virtuous cycle of union? So the origin of union, like we saw the origin of discord, the origin of union. Union is a synonym for the word concord. Even in English, that was awesome. I love Latin. So con, united, cord, heart. If discord is away from the heart, is a denial of the heart, of God's love, concord is the opposite.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And concord is a synonym for union. So if we are united by the heart, if concord is self-acceptance, a union with the essential, bringing us closer to the divine love and to God. So it's an agreement. It's harmony. The definition in the dictionary of concord is agreement or harmony between people or groups. Another synonym is unity. So where there's discord, let me sow unity. So when we agree, when we accept that we are God's children, that we are God's creation, when we accept that the divine laws rule the universe, physically and morally, that's when we start breaking the vicious cycle. And we go back to the feeling of being an apprentice of Jesus. Jesus came to show us the way. He came to show us how it's done. The more we move away from what Jesus did, the further away we are from being at peace. The closer, right, concord, so the closer to God's heart we are, the more we accept God and the divine laws, the closer we become to being happy. Not happy here, not happy with my purse or my shoes or my car, truly happy, like from the soul. What's the cause? Unconditional acceptance of life as it is. Not the idea of it is what it is, so be it. SHIT happens, whatever. So it's not the whatever attitude. It's unconditional acceptance of life as it is. That unconditional acceptance needs the knowledge, needs the understanding that we are on a planet of trials and atonement. We love to say that we are way better than some people. In general, we're pretty much all at the same level. As much as we would like to believe we're so much more special, we're all on the same planet. Except for superior spirits who are here on missions, which I don't think includes any of us right here, right now. We are basically at the same level. We are not the same as other people because each one of us is absolutely unique. Only I have had the experiences I have, right? However, we are in the collective of a trial and atonement planet. Accepting it already takes a huge burden from our backs. I can't be better than Mary or Josephine or whoever. I can only be better than Renata yesterday. It's not a competition to see who is better amongst us. It's a process of individual evolution. Once we understand and accept this, once we accept that whatever problems we have, whatever issues we have, are opportunities for us to learn and move on and use our free will to make good decisions, that will give us the peace at heart that we need. That is the unconditional acceptance of life as it is. It's not whatever it is. I am at this level because I haven't done enough to be above it. So what can I do about it now? What's gone is gone. It is what it is, fine. But how can I move on from here? So it's not whatever, I don't want to do anything. It's too bad, so sad. From now on, what else can I do? So this is the unconditional acceptance we're talking about. This acceptance naturally leads us to love the divine laws, causing us to unite to God's heart, reconnecting to Him. Because we try to disconnect from God, but He never disconnects from us. He's just waiting for us to go back home like the prodigal son. He's always there. We move away, but God's always there. And when we understand, when we accept that the divine laws are exactly what's going to lead us to happiness, then we feel the will to act on it, to work on it. It's hard work, yes, but I know that right there at the end, my reward is going to be a million times better than any reward I could have here now. Right? Just moving on to a planet of regeneration. Hooray. Movement. Again, movement of acceptance. So if we recognize that we are divine creations, we recognize that so are others. And here's where we come to the you. Okay? We don't have to agree with everyone on everything they think. We need to love and fulfill the law of love, justice, and charity. So the three basic questions. Whatever I'm doing or thinking or saying, is it loving to myself and others? Is it fair or just myself and others? Is it charitable? Myself and others. The three basic questions. If we ask ourselves those three questions every time we are trying to do a self-analysis of a specific or general behavior, thought, action, it's foolproof. It does not fail. The problem is, again, we don't want to ask those questions because we know that the answer is going to be something that we know is wrong. And then our conscience goes like beep, 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 beep. So it's easier not to ask the questions. So we go la, 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 la. But if we ask ourselves those three questions every single time, it's foolproof. So if the other person is not in sync with the law of love, justice, and charity, again, I don't have to agree with them. I don't have to agree with what everybody does. It's not my role here. It's not why I'm here. I'm not here to agree with everybody. We're not here to all think the same. Or we would lose our individuality, right? So everybody is entitled to their individuality. I don't have to agree with anybody. And because other people may not be in sync with this law of love, justice, and charity, they might be breaking the law. They might be rude to me. They might offend me or try to offend me somehow. They might do whatever they want to do to me. But how? Yet, if I am in sync with the law of love, justice, and charity, that is what matters. I don't have to agree with the person. If the person is breaking that law, there's always the law of responsibility and cause and effect as well for everybody. So it's their choice. They will deal with the consequences, right? So the law of freedom allows them to break the law, but they're responsible for that. And when I think like that, when I understand that they are children of God, just like I am, they make mistakes just like I do. They have problems just like me. Once I understand that, I am automatically united to them. Even if we disagree, I am united to that person because I don't have a negative feeling towards that person because I understand. In general, as a whole, as a collective, we are pretty much at the same level. We're all here on this planet for a reason, to evolve. And my understanding that already unites me to that person. Even if they don't feel the same towards me. Because again, we can't change anybody else. We can't evolve for someone else, just for ourselves. And if I develop a positive feeling towards someone who might hate me, I am doing my part. I am fulfilling the law of love, justice, and charity. And the law of cause and effect will come from each you, because we usually think of the law of cause and effect only as something negative. Aqui se faz, aqui se paga. What goes around comes around. But the law of cause and effect is also for the positive. So it doesn't matter if the other person is not doing their part. As long as I am doing my part, if my cause is good, my effect will be good as well. And that's what we need to think. And that's how we need to understand the virtuous cycle as opposed to the vicious cycle. Because we are doing to others what we would like others to do to us. We are fulfilling the golden rule. Again, extremely simple concept, but a lot of work. Because in every action we do, in every negative feeling, every time my child annoys me, every time my boss says something I don't like, every time my student tests me, every time a customer bugs me, I have to go back to the 3 questions. So like I said, 100 times a day asking ourselves the 3 questions. And the 3 questions can be summarized as the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Very simple, but a lot of work. We have a lot of work to do on that. And then, to close, a small passage, ipsis literis from the book on page 111. Union does not mean to, sorry, it's not the closing, there's one more, sorry. Union does not mean, not to number 2, T-O, sorry. Union does not mean to accept everything that comes from the other person when their actions are not in accordance with the divine laws. So when the other person is breaking the divine laws, I don't have to agree with them just to say, I'm fraternal, we are in union. If the person is breaking a divine law, I don't have to agree with that person. Because that would mean to agree with their mistakes. It is in the essential level that we can always be united to the other person, despite our differences of ideas, feelings, and attitudes. So when I think about being united to a person, again, we don't have to agree to be united. The union comes from my understanding that we are both God's creations. That even though they think or act differently from me, we are both entitled to the same blessings from God. Because many times we like to think ourselves better. We like to judge others. We like to judge who deserves or doesn't deserve love, forgiveness. We like to be judges. This person deserves that, doesn't just deserve that, doesn't. That means we don't understand. That means we are not united. That means we're not connected through the essential truth that we are all God's creation. Because I don't like that person, that doesn't mean that God's going to smite him with a lightning and kill him. Right? So the union doesn't come from agreeing with someone who's doing something wrong. It comes from understanding that essentially we are the same, God's creation. So if I impose my ideas onto another person, I'm not just disagreeing with that person. I'm also forcing my point of view. I'm imposing my point of view. I'm invading the person's space. So if I'm trying to develop union, I stick to my own thoughts. It doesn't mean I don't have to change my thoughts, ideas, or action. I stick to my thoughts, even if I don't disagree with their mistakes. Because otherwise I'll be a hypocrite. If I know someone is doing something wrong and I agree just to be at peace, I'm being a hypocrite because I know that's wrong. So I don't have to agree with what's wrong. What I have to do is to still be united by the understanding that at a basic level, we are the same. Even though we act differently, we think differently. So I don't know, you have siblings, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have 2 children, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. On a basic level, they are children from the same parents. You and your siblings, children from the same parents. Your 2 children, children from the same parents. Are we all the same? But at a basic level, children of the same parents. And do we need to agree with our children or our siblings to love them? Others outside our family are absolutely the same thing. We still haven't been able to see that clearly yet. We still think too much about the blood ties. I need to love my children because they are my children. That's not how it works. I need to love my siblings because they are my siblings. No. We love them because at a basic level, they are the same. And we can love respecting differences, just like we do with our siblings and children. But we need to extend that to the whole of humanity. And this is the exercise.
Do you love me as you love your kids?
I am not at that level yet, but it is something that from my understanding that I need to get there, I will exercise daily. The only one that we clearly saw who was able to do it was Jesus. But he's already an angelic spirit. We are not. So we're not here to be Jesus. We are here to take one more step in our evolution. So we need the understanding that we need to get there in order for us to take one extra step. Does that make sense? So we are not at that level yet. We're not capable of that yet. We are still too, what's the word? We are still
Learning.
clothed. Yeah, we are still clothed. We are still surrounded by our egotistic feelings. Our ego is still too loud. Most of the time, here at the level we are, our ego overcomes our essence because we allow it to. But when we understand that we need to use the ego in order to evolve, we don't need to kill it because we need it. We don't need to suppress it because we need to acknowledge that it's there. But how can we break the vicious and do the virtues? We acknowledge that attitude. I acknowledge that I don't love my neighbor as I love my children, and I try to change it. And it's not going to be in this or maybe in the next 10 incarnations. But the understanding and just the exercise of trying to go one step further is what's going to get us there. There's no perfection by decree. We can't pass a law that tomorrow will all be perfect. It's a lot of hard work. A lot. And many times we're a little too lazy to work on it. Okay, so yeah, now it's the end. And what's the application of union? It's support and help those to whom we are essentially connected, even in a situation of discordance. Although we have different points of view, we keep helping and supporting each other, expressing the feeling of charity under all circumstances. So that's what union is good for. Help and support. Even when I disagree, I still express my feelings of charity. I still go back to the 3 questions. Is it loving, fair, and charitable, both to me and to others. We can't lose that from our window. We need to always be looking at that. All right. So I just need to check with the kids. Please, Martha, thank you. Yes. Oh, actually, it's a little, I think it's 2 minutes behind, so it's 12:02. I'm infamous for going over my allotted time. You're coming? Okay. So after the kids show us what they did, they're gonna go back, we're gonna do the final prayer, and we'll go for passes. Okay? Marcus, are you on a diet?
Restriction.
I swear I wasn't gonna make one, but then Eric asked me, and I couldn't say no to Eric. He was like, I wasn't gonna stay. Well, while they're not coming, any questions, comments? Again, it is a simple concept, but it's a lot of hard work. It's not easy to practice.
Mommy.
So our virtue of the month is,
Fraternity.
and these guys did a great job showing up what is real fraternity working together. And what is Jesus teaching about fraternity, Nina?
Love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. John 13:34-35.
Yay!
Yay!
Good job.
You guys wanna look at me and smile? Yay!
Cheese.
Thank you. Thank you guys, awesome job. Come on, applause. We're gonna do the final prayer.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for the prayer.
No, I don't want to.
Huh? DJ. Oh. Oh, no, you have to do that. So let's close our eyes. Dear Lord, we thank you for the possibility of being here today. We thank you for being physically able to be here. We thank our friends and their guardian angels, for those who took the time to be here today, both incarnated and disconnected. We ask you, Lord, that we can share a little of this energy, a little of this light with our friends who are online, with all the friends who would like to be here today, but couldn't for a reason or another. And we ask you, Jesus, that as difficult as it is for us to truly understand your lessons, that we may at least grasp the concept and truly try from the bottoms of our hearts with sincere intention to follow your path. We ask our guardian angels to keep us safe and protected. We ask for protection and enlightenment for our families, for our friends, for our city of Calgary, for this country that welcomed us and where we live, for our home country, Brazil, and for the whole planet. May peace and understanding and acceptance always be the solution for our leaders, as well as for us.